دكتور ليلى بالتوفيق إن شاء الله.
شكرا.
Last 1 minute. Kerim abi, if you need anything, you can call me. If you say anything, I'm going to start webinar at 8 o'clock exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Our webinar is going to be starting in a little bit. We're just waiting for our participants to join us. We're just waiting for a couple more minutes for all the participants. I'll just go ahead and start. Thank you very much for being here. Hope everybody's gonna enjoy tonight. We have a very special guest, and so I just wanted to remind you a couple things, technical stuff. On the bottom of your screen, you will be seeing a couple signs. Like on the right hand side, you would see the translation button. This is going to be a little bit an advanced session because we're going to be doing 3 different languages and 3 different channels. Laila is going to be speaking in Arabic. I will be speaking in English, and there's going to be a Turkish translation as well. And just wanted to again thank you to the COVID. I guess we thank you for because of the COVID that the society started these conferences, and we're very happy to be part of these conferences. This is the 4th one and the chain of the conferences. And the autumn online seminar, this is going to be presented by the Institute for IBN ARABI Studies at Kerim Foundation and the Institute for Sufi Studies at Üsküdar University in collaboration with the Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi Society. I would like to thank again to the society, especially Martin and Lucy supporting us with all that, everything that we're doing right now. And our series started with Dr. Mahmut Kılıç's last week's speech about Ahmet Avni Bey's understanding of Ibn Arabi. Tonight, we have Laila Khalifa. She's going to be talking about Ibn Arabi in spiritual fiqh and Gnostic knowledge. And next week, Mukhtar Ali is going to join us with the Dawood al-Kayseri's Mukaddima, the essential introduction to Ibn Arabi. And the last week, 27th of November, the same time, there's going to be panel discussion between the speakers, among the speakers, of themes arising during the seminars. And Mahmoud El-Kluch will be chairing that. Just want to give you a little bit information about Laila Khalifa, tonight's speaker. She began her studies in Amman, Jordan, at University of Jordan in social sciences and history. And then she went to England, pursued her postgraduate research in social psychology at the University of Nottingham. That was in 1985. And she was awarded her MA in classical and modern Islamic thought at the Sorbonne in France in 1988. And she has dedicated her research to the study of Ibn Arabi's doctrine and received her PhD in 2000 in history and civilization. And then she worked, she worked with famous professor Michel Chodkiewicz, and she completed her dissertation, Conquest, Elimination, Sufism and Prophecy, the Futuwa in Ibn Arabi. As she continues her research in Ibn Arabi's metaphysical doctrine, she participated in a lot of international symposiums, which I had the honor to meet her at the Harakani Symposium in Istanbul. And she published books and articles. So I'm just gonna give the honor to Laila Khalifa to talk tonight. Laila, thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of God, the most merciful, most gracious, the most merciful, and peace be upon Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon you all. The difficulties of our time and the current pandemic doesn't mean the absence of divine gentleness, as today we live in a blessed time as well. We witness a great the great establishment of Akbarian School of Ibn Arabi here in Istanbul under the auspices of Dr. Mahmoud Erol Kilic, a window to both the East and the West in collaboration with the Institute of Karim Vakfi, a scholarly institute headed by Jumanlar Hoja, and includes a number of great scholars such as Mustafa Taherli. May God grant him a speedy recovery. Therefore, we are celebrating this long-awaiting project. This interest in the Akbarian School goes hand in hand with the interest shown by Oxford Institute, one of the first institutes which showed a serious interest in the heritage of Sheikh Al-Akbar. I'd like to greet all our great audiences who are watching us through their smart windows. I'd like also to greet the interpreters. Professor Mahmoud Kilic started this blessed series on Ibn al-Arabi last week by discussing the disciples of Ibn al-Arabi, especially in Anatolia, a place which had a great impact on establishing the foundation of Akbarian school. And I hope these lectures would have a great influence in combining the East and the West through Akbarian gnosis. The scholars engaged with the school of Ibn al-Arabi had discussed many important Akbarian concepts. For example, the late Michel Chodkiewicz, may Allah have mercy upon him, explained the hazards of delving into Ibn al-Arabi's ocean without shores. And thus he provided us with a life jacket through expounding essential issues such as the issue of the seal of saints, Khatimiyat al-Wilaya. Also, Professor Also, Professor Abdel Fattah Mufti introduced the Quranic, Gnostic, universal, and numeral keys to Ibn al-Arabi's texts. Moreover, Prof. William Mitchitek discussed the science of revelations and opening and followed its manifestation in the Persian and Turkish schools. As for Professor Suad al-Hakim, she succeeded in climbing the mounts of Ibn al-Arabi and his openings in the world of Gnostic knowledge, and provided the most important dictionary for the searcher of the Akbarian wisdom. The Akbarian heritage is based on the Quran, and that's why it is described as ocean with no shores, but also its bottomless sea. I will discuss some of the essential issues in Ibn al-Arabi's school, whose teachings in the Gnostic knowledge and spiritual jurisprudence is distinguished with the integration of different hermeneutical and Gnostic styles and methods. In some issues, we find Ibn al-Arabi in agreement with the Mu'tazilati's opinion, and in another issue, he would side with the Ash'arites. Ibn al-Arabi would also explain different schools of jurisprudence, and we find him agreeing with one and disagreeing with another, explaining the divine origin and the reason of the differences between the schools of jurisprudence. Ibn al-Arabi adds that people of revelation have the liberty of delving deep into all schools, views, religions, and groups, and and they know where the similarities and differences are. They also realize each science and its divine origin. Therefore, the wise Gnostic is the one who combines the divine, natural, mathematical, logical sciences by means provided through both the faculty of intellect and the granted gift. The granted gift is a divine flow which results in openings of revelation and witnessing. We see Ibn al-Arabi discussing the concept of opening the doors of divine revelation and closing it, and how all nations are created from the Muhammadan presence. Ibn al-Arabi also discussed how to open the locked treasures of divine generosity and explains the key names of being. Ibn al-Arabi expounds as well the divine openings of night and day, along with many other illuminating openings. Ibn al-Arabi is distinguished by his methodology in explaining mystical jurisprudence, as he brings the Sharia rulings to its divine origin, as nothing in this universe lacks a divine origin. In other words, every image in this world is representing a similar divine image. Ibn al-Arabi explains through his methodology how the initiation of divine sciences comes from both the Quran and the divine attributes with its different presence. Thus, God is not known through his own divine self, but through his divine names, which are the active doors in the universe. Ibn al-Arabi is also careful to explain the shares of both God and the servant from the realities of the divine names and attributes, while keeping the principles of the unity of being intact through maintaining a balanced understanding of the concept of the transcendence and anthropomorphism. God is omniscient or all-knowing with no ignorance, whereas the human being is knowledgeable with ignorance. God is the all-rich, as he didn't create creation out of need to them. As for the servant, he can be rich, or the servant of the rich, but he will always remain in the maqam of fakr. That means in the place of being poor and the need to God. Through this fine understanding, Ibn al-Arabi measures the meanings of the divine names and its presence, explaining what distinguishes the truth of God from creation in all divine names. In this context, Ibn al-Arabi refers to a secret which is described as wondrous secret, which we considered as the golden rule in studying the methodology of Ibn al-Arabi, especially in using interpretation in his school. He says, I draw your attention to it without explanation because it doesn't bear any explanation. From this, we understand that this secret is from the comprehensive realities or the scientific constants, so to speak, as every science has its own constants, scientific texts, and a methodology. Sufism as both science and methodology. These scientific bases are summarized as follows. God strikes examples for himself, and for him no examples are struck. So he is similar to things, but things are not similar to him. So it's said that God, in his relationship to his creation is like a king to his kingdom, but it would be wrong to say the king in his kingdom is like God to his creation. This issue is understood through the example of the mirror. The image in the mirror is similar to the one who looks at the mirror, but not vice versa. Thus, God is what is manifested, but what is manifested is not him, just like he is the manifest at the time of manifestation. He is also the hidden, and that's why we say that he is similar to things, but things are not similar to him, as he is either as he is their essence, but they are not his essence, and that is a strange knowledge. In theology, this concept is considered one of the obvious things which do not bear explanation. This divine principle explains to us why God in Islam is being worshipped in all images, as God says in the Quran, for your Lord has decreed that you worship none but him, because he is the essence of every image, but the image is not his essence. According to his understanding, he explains the divine spiritual and natural secrets in juristic rulings of the Quran and the Sunnah. And this is related to Quran, where the scholars, according to his understanding, Ibn al-Arabi explains the divine, spiritual, and natural secrets in juristic rulings of the Quran and the Sunnah. Ibn al-Arabi, being the most qualified person to describe his sciences, says that they are the tongues of the Sharia. He goes further to explain, saying it's known that there is the unforeseen, but it's known what is in it, or what is it. So when the divine news are delivered by the angels to the messengers and thus to us, the believer of these divine news leaves his thought behind and accepts the news with his intellect and believes the deliverer of a news. Here Ibn al-Arabi describes that the prerequisite for the intellectual and the theoretical mind to be prepared to receive the divine relation is to accept to receive knowledge both about this world and the hereafter, and especially the sciences of the hereafter, which goes way beyond the intellectual capacity of the mind. There is nothing but God, and the universe is contingent. There is nothing but God, and the universe is manifest. This is what Ibn al-Arabi says. From this perspective, Ibn al-Arabi pays attention to the Gnostic, mythical, and spiritual aspects of the Sharia and its pillars. We take, for example, the methodology of Ibn al-Arabi in explaining the spiritual jurisprudence of ritual cleanliness, the ablution, and the usage of water to wash and wipe out or dry ablution with purified sand or soil. Ablution has a noble status which results in a divine proximity. Ibn al-Arabi explains the secrets of ablution, crossing over from the literal understanding of ablution to its spiritual significance. He expounds that divine proximity is attained either by the secret of life, water, which is used to witness the self-subsisting, the eternal, or by returning back to the origin of creation and the father of the natural growth of all things, the origin of all children, which is the element of soil in the earth. Thus, we have water to witness the self-subsisting, the eternal, or soil, in order to contemplate the origin of a human being. Ibn al-Arabi considers the term opening with all its different meanings and images, such as opening the door, opening in new territories, expansions of the chest, elimination of veils, and the manifestations following it are all related to the meaning of opening. These openings are a divine provision which functions as witness to the divine sciences.
I apologize. Can you a little bit slower, if you don't mind?
Yes, of course.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. I
Yes.
apologize for interrupting.
No. قد لا يجلبنا الصواب.
These openings are a divine provision which functions as a witness to the divine sciences revealed by the tongues of Sharia. It wouldn't be wrong to say that for Ibn al-Arabi, the sciences of manifestations and openings is similar to the sciences of intellectual reasoning.
Yes, please.
يقول ابن عربي إن
Ibn Arabi says that ijtihad it shouldn't be in total, it should be in total harmony and in line with Quranic scripture and prophetic traditions with no contradictions. In other words, these openings should be rather based on the Quran and the Sunnah as its origin. According to Ibn al-Arabi, ijtihad is not about issuing a new ruling, but it means to introduce an evidence from the Quran or the Sunnah. This was always the case of the openings of Ibn al-Arabi, which was thoroughly detected by Professor Abdulaziz al-Mansub who edited in completion the book of Futuhat and confirms that Ibn al-Arabi resorted to the Quran more than 10,000 times and referred to the prophetic traditions more than 3,000 times. All credit goes to Professor Mahmoud al-Ghurab, who took upon his shoulder the mission of collecting all the Quranic verses and the prophetic traditions with its proper sources and publishing it. This greatly served the researchers of the works of Ibn al-Arabi, who emphasized that taking prophetic traditions as an authentic source in a divine Quranic command. God says, whatever the prophet has given you, take it. Openings for Ibn al-Arabi is neither inner psychological experiences reflected in interpreting issues related to gnosis nor intellectual, philosophical, and theoretical concepts used in interpreting scriptural texts. Using the tongue and the language of the Sharia and the prophetic wisdom is necessary. Also, opening the door is necessary. Otherwise, all what is behind the door is only feeling and not science. The science of opening, when it is in total compliance to the science of Sharia, is seen as a tool of confirmation of what is believed by the mind in the sciences of the Sharia through witnessing by the heart its actualization in reality. In other words, the aspirant traverses from the belief of limitation to the belief of witnessing, or moving from the certainty of knowledge, علم اليقين, to the vision of the truth or the eye of certainty, عين اليقين, and finally to the last stage of the truth, certainty, حق اليقين. This means that the aspirant who aims to receive opening moves from the sailor illuminating sciences to the opening sciences of a prophetic nocturnal periods. The path to God varies between day work and night work, or between night journey and divine ascendance, or between expansion and contraction, rigid spiritual exercises and intimate converse, totality and details between the sciences of the Makan opening and the perils of a prophetic aphorism. As for Ibn al-Arabi emphasis on the importance of the opening to be Makan, it's true that Ibn al-Arabi had a special opening during his presence in Mecca, as the divine command of writing down these openings was revealed to him. But the reason goes way farther, as the openings were the constant factor which accompanied all his journeys starting from Andalusia. To him, Mecca represents the abode of blessings. As for guidance and the clear signs, it symbolizes the Muhammadan heart and the throne of the Arabic Quran, which is the pivot around which all the pilgrim students circumambulate around. Pilgrim to God, as Ibn al-Arabi says, is contemplating God's knowledge through the path of witnessing. Ibn al-Arabi similarizes the student of knowledge to the pilgrim who needs to perform some prerequisites in order to be prepared for the status of ihram, and then comes circumambulation, tawaf, traversing between Mount Safa and Marwa, throwing a stone, standing in Arafah, Arafah, staying overnight in Mina, slaughtering animals, and only then the student can celebrate understanding divine knowledge and be joyful with God's divine relation of Quranic secrets and juristic rulings, which are received directly by the Kaaba of the heart, which is the pivot of divine knowledge and the abode of divine protection. Here Ibn al-Arabi draws the attention of the requester of openings to the importance of opening the Kaaba of one's heart first before conquering the realms of the self. The heart opening is the one which will protect the fruits of both the sensual and spiritual openings of all realms. According to Ibn al-Arabi's teachings, opening is one but has two lights, just as existence in one but has two beginnings, and religion is one but has two degrees. For the opening, the first light is an opening from God, which is a great victory, and the second opening comes from the side of creation, which results from eagerness and self-preparation to conquer the self and contemplating the openings. These two lights should both meet. To sum it up, there is no immigration after the opening of the Mecca of the heart, but opening continue in the sensual realms. Ibn Arabi was going to name the book of Al-Futuhat al-Makkiyah as only Al-Fatah al-Makki, but then he changed his mind to the plural and became Al-Futuhat. Ibn al-Arabi explains that the word openings reminds us of the Islamic openings or conquests occurred after the opening of Mecca and demolishing the idols. So it was an Abrahamic scenario with Muhammadan origin, which resulted in the outreach of the guidance of the Quran from the Kaaba of the Arabian Peninsula and to Jerusalem, Levant area, Persian world, and Khorasan, where the Malamitiya school flourished. Passing over to China, the land of knowledge, and India, the land of wisdom, the knowledge of the Quran also spread to Anatolia and Egypt and off to North Africa until it reached Morocco and Andalusia. The aspirant of the openings of Gnostic knowledge should contemplate these macrocosmic issues and benefit from it in his microcosmic world. Ibn al-Arabi adds that when it comes to guidance, people has different states in times of concealment and revelation of gnosis. In this regard, Ibn al-Arabi says in poetry, people are either guiding or be guided, some of them to the Levant and others to Egypt. Whatever is related to the Levant would be seen present, and if it belongs to Egypt, it would be seen alive. And if they remember my spirit, I long to Egypt. As for the city of Baghdad, he says, Baghdad is my home and I don't see any home for me but it. Then Ibn al-Arabi would become a guest in the land of wisdom, saying, I went to India in hope of meeting a sage whose sea would overflow the land. Then he reaches China, where he said, we stayed in China in the darkness of the night in buildings with a great height. Ibn Arabi always resorts to divine knowledge, spiritual subtleties, symbols, and aphorisms in his poetry. So he sometimes mentions the mysterious symbols in Persia, and other times he refers to its fine order and its buildings. He also mentions the beauty of the Roman girls and doesn't forget the Quran of Sheba, the Queen of Sheba, Yemen, Lubna of Gadamish, Zahar of Tunisia, and the Virgin of Fez. Ibn al-Arabi spent a lot of his time traveling, connecting different cities to the Mecca of his heart until he settled in Damascus, where he was buried. The scholars who are specialized in the works of Ibn al-Arabi would agree on the importance of his work as well as the difficulty of his writings. Some of them would find the difficulty in the language of Ibn al-Arabi as they consider it unclear. Others would find the difficulty in the great number of his works, which is spread over thousands of papers. When it comes to issue of the difficulty of the language of Ibn al-Arabi as a matter of fact, his language is a pure correct Arabic, as he is the son of this language and its master. He mastered and owned it and used it perfectly to express his thoughts in the field of science and gnosis. Ibn al-Arabi was fluent in the principles of grammar and the rulings of jurisprudence, along with his eloquent and rhetoric. I was nature to love the Arabic language, and my father was one of the great figures of the Arabic language, which he taught to his children and students who learned to love and respect it. It's also the language of the Quran and the language of science and beauty. But I never realized the full breadth and depth of the Arabic language and its ability to explain Gnostic issue until I started engaging with Ibn al-Arabi. I witnessed how the language turned into a loyal servant fulfilling the task of expressing what her master wishes. For Ibn al-Arabi, Arabic was like the horse to the jockey who takes the horse to whatever way he wishes. Thus, Ibn al-Arabi used to express celestial, spiritual, terrestrial, sensual, or imaginative meanings. This language has an amazing ability for expression, which Ibn al-Arabi mastered. Ibn al-Arabi considers it essential to realize the Gnostic dimensions of the terms of the Arabic language, as it is the language of the soul, just as the non-Arabic language are for the senses. Therefore, Ibn al-Arabi finds it necessary to establish a strong foundational basis of the Arabic language before the specialist delves into openings. Establishing a strong foundational basis requires to read the obscurity of the non-Arabic language in the light of the clarity of the sciences of the Arabic language. Also, reading partial realities should be done in light of total realities. So, for example, when we discuss the realities of the land of truth, al-simisma, we shouldn't deal with it spiritually away from the realities of the heavens and the earth, and we shouldn't kill it to understand it, as this is only a discussion to the dead. As for this dissecting gnosis, it is a divine dissection which requires its life to be intact in order to understand the science of the cosmic world and its Arabic explanation. So the issue of Arabic and non-Arabic languages for Ibn al-Arabi goes beyond the issues of a prejudice, racism, or ethnicity. Arabic represents for him the language of a clarification and understanding, which leads to wakefulness, and that is the goal of the Gnostic path, as its essence is understanding divine unity with God and God by God in every atom and minute article of existence. Ibn al-Arabi, in the chapter of Mujahada in the book of Al-Futuhat, narrates that he saw a dream in which he was asked to engage the 3 small letters in every chapter, and that he has to show how these 3 compound letters are composed of long vowel or weak letter, huruf al-ila, which are the alif, waw, ya. This means that Ibn al-Arabi used the logic of the Arabic language to explain the logic of Gnostic issues. This was also observed by Massinon in the writing of Hallaj, as he notes that Hallaj Gnostic methodology is based on the Arabic grammar, especially the 3 main grammatical cases: nominative, accusative, and genitive. Messaging believes that Hallaj was influenced by the Arab grammarians in Basra and Al-Khalil. Thus, the researchers should be aware of the great influence of the Arabic language. As for the issue of the massive production of Al-Akbarian heritage, massive production of any writer requires for sure both time and effort from the reader, but the production of the author is not necessarily described as difficult. The huge Akbarian heritage represents its diversity in Gnostic sciences, which are always supported by Quranic proof and divine evidence. Thus, we find that Ibn al-Arabi resorts to the writings of various Muslim scholars in different fields of knowledge. For example, Ibn al-Arabi would mention the scholars of different juristic schools, especially Ibn Hazm. In the science of letters, he refers to Ibn Masarra, and in Quranic hermeneutics and theology, he refers to Ibn Barajan, Qadi, Abu Bakr, Ibn al-Arabi, and Abu Bakr al-Bagilani. Ibn Arabi makes abundant references to poetry, literature, and Arabic aphorism. His books are also full of sciences of prophethood, sainthood, and miraculous acts, karamat, and he refers a lot to Al-Junayd, Duha al-Num, Al-Kushairi, and Abu Talib al-Makki, among others. He also discusses issues that goes beyond the capacity of the intellect. He attained this knowledge through divine openings, which was especially given to him by God and wasn't given to anyone before him. For example, Ibn al-Arabi was given knowledge about events that will be repeated every 3,000 years, among other issues related to resurrection, which wasn't mentioned by anyone before him. Ibn al-Arabi also talks about metaphysics, a topic which is discussed by the philosophers and theologians, but what sets Ibn al-Arabi apart is that metaphysics to him is related to the limited elemental nature, as nothing goes beyond the realm of nature, considering its absolute Rahmani dimension. Thus, when acts go beyond nature, it means it goes out of its natural habits and not completely out of nature. This means metaphorics goes beyond what people are used to see in nature and its habits, but not out of the fabric of nature, because it is the breath of the merciful and nothing goes above it or out of it. It's Mother Nature, which is unknown for a lot of people, as so little is given about its knowledge, and its status is above heaven as heaven, and what is all in it under its feet. Ibn al-Arabi emphasizes that the knowledge of Mother Nature is corporeal by scripture, opening, and revelation. Therefore, the miracles of the prophets and the miraculous act of the saints do not go beyond Mother Nature, but it goes beyond the realm of the intellect, and thus the intellect ought to understand and comprehend it, even though it didn't witness it. Ibn al-Arabi doesn't skip any science, as he even talks about the odd sciences in ancient civilizations, as we see him talk about the builders of the pyramids, and confirms that they are human beings and not jinn, as some people have thought. He also informs us that the loss of the science of building pyramids is related to the fact that every civilization and epoch has its own sciences, which belong to the certain cosmic time. Thus, this knowledge is perished when its epoch is gone. Therefore, the science of building pyramids is related to a cosmic matter relevant to the integrating the eagle in the lion, which became integrated in the Capricorn at the time of Ibn al-Arabi. It seems that this cosmic science is also gone. Let's take another example in which Ibn al-Arabi tells us about what was written in the book, The Nabatiyan Agriculture by Ibn al-Arabi Wahshiyya, who discusses the sciences of the civilization of Iraq, Euphrates, and Tigris. Ibn al-Arabi narrates that some of the scientists who are specialized in the science of nature succeeded in composing what looks like a human being from a human sperm, which was fermented in a certain way at a certain time in a certain place. Ibn al-Arabi comments on this story, saying that a created being for every opening his eyes and closing them, but he doesn't speak and only eats what was given to him and lived him. Ibn al-Arabi talked about merciful and about love, said by Ibn al-Arabi. Ahl Tasawwuf and Irfan, they all agree on this principle that Ibn al-Arabi talked about by going back to the The interpreted meaning that Ibn al-Arabi wanted is that love found in their and this is for the mercy of them, and this is from the perfect of the religion, and this goes to the origin of love and respect. But the main principle, Akbarian principle that the studiers should pay attention to when they study Ibn al-Arabi, according to the principles of Ibn al-Arabi, when we talk about all the concepts, whatever is clear in the presence, it goes back to the presence, to the ilahi ilmi hadra. Ibn al-Arabi says that this is the tongue of the facts that shows itself, and it is under the al-alim name or al-alim name, under the collective name Allah. And Ibn al-Anadol, the student of Ibn al-Arabi, explaining the unknown for all is not related to this, because this is a degree of science and a degree of love, and this is related to the openness of Allah, and no one knows about this but Allah. So the perfectionness is two parts. And there is one part that describes the two perfections, and if it is related to one of the perfections from the principle of love and respect, so everything, all of these things are related to ourselves, and this is about the hereafter, and this is related to the mercy of God. And Ibn al-Arabi proves this to be related to respect and love. But Ibn al-Arabi, when he says that my heart is now related to God until my heart is God, so people repeated these verses, and they are repeating them in every occasion and even on every platform, even political platforms. Some people think that what is meant by religions, that they are not related to Sheikh al-Akbar. This is the perfect of the religion. He says that the religion is two religions, and he explains himself that the religion is one, but it has two levels, one at God and the other by the creation, by the creation. But the only religion by God is Islam. And didn't he ask that? They said that, don't you admit that it is Allah? They said, yes, we do. And after that, the deen prevailed in dunya. And after that, they came on the mouth of a prophet. After that, it came the last religion, which is the religion of a prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So the religion is not limited to one image, but to all images, as we said in the beginning, because God, as Ibn al-Arabi said, that God is the only worshipped God, as God said that, oh Lord, you worship only him. So in this way, the servant came in every image, and he said that my heart became, that he says afterlife. He didn't say it was, he said it became. And this is related to the final religion, which came in the end. So mosques and even churches, they have their own times to express some principles and to express the names of Allah in their own way. And of course, the final religion is related to al-Ism al-Jami', which is Allah. And al-Ism al-Jami', as Ibn al-Arabi says, it's the strongest one. So all in all, the Mecca openings of Ibn al-Arabi and his books witnessed his distinguishedness on all occasions and in all time because it is related to the Allah wisdom, and it is going to stay and remain till the day after, and it's going to be somehow related to Prophet Muhammad. The last question that we have to answer, are the rights and the information of Ibn al-Arabi are related to the elite, to a specific group of people, or to specialized people? He talked about al-Futuhat. Ibn al-Arabi explains that he is very generous, and he always is generous to any guest. Whenever he has guests, he always make banquets and just serve them right. And he has their and of course different people and public people can of course accept this because they have their fitra and they have their nature. And of course if you study his texts and his statements, they can be understood clearly, and I thank God at the end.
Beautiful. Thank you so very much. This was super.
Thank you. شكرا جزيلا لك، لقد كان هذا رائعا. شكرا.
And we will go to the QA session in a little bit. I will give a couple minutes to our attendees to actually put their questions into the chat. The first question I will be asking, I will say the question in English. Laila, if you can give me just 1 second, I will.
Yes, of course.
I will switch to Turkish channel, say Turkish for the Turkish people. Ibn Arabi is saying, my heart has become able to take all forms until he says, whatever direction its caravans may take, for love is my religion and my faith. Would you please elaborate what religion he meant by that? And I'll switch to Turkish. Sevgili arkadaşlar, Türkçe kısmı için de şey yapıyorum. İbn Arabi'nin söylemiş olduğu kalbim has become able to take on all forms until he says whatever direction his caravans may take. Kalbim tüm formları alacak until he says whatever direction his caravans may take. Hangi yöne bakarsam bakayım, for love is my religion. Aşk benim hem dinim hem de inancımdır. Bu konuyla ilgili İbn Arabi'nin hangi dini burada belirttiğini söyleyebilir misiniz? Yes, please.
نعم. المسألة مسألة العشق.
It is about the love of religion that Ibn al-Arabi talked about, that my heart is becoming all images. It is related to 2 points. The first one I talked about at the beginning of the speech. It's about the secret that Ibn al-Arabi referred to, which is that Allah is nothing similar to Allah. Allah is similar to things, but things cannot be similar to Allah. So Allah is the ayn of everything. And this is about when people started to go into Islam. This is about differentiating between images and Islam. So we have Islam as the collective religion, the Sharia of Allah, that Allah is there, is present in every image, is not related to only one image. This is what Ibn al-Arabi talks about, which is that's why my heart is one part of every image, because it's in the time of entering Islam. Let me explain here more. The religion for Ibn al-Arabi is two levels. It is one religion, but with two levels. What's one in the when we have the mithaq of Bani Adam, that I am your God, this is about the nature of the body. After that, we have different religions and during the life, where we have wisdoms of different prophets till the end, when we have one final religion, which is Islam of the Prophet Muhammad. So as Ibn al-Arabi says, all religions are like images of asma, of God names, and the last religion, which is Allah name, which is the collective name. And this is when my heart is part of every image. This is after he converted to Islam, to Muhammad's religion. And that's why this can be taken into Tawheed, unifying in all images, and it can be in every image. So when he talks about religion, he's talking about Muhammad's religion. It's the love religion, which combines the nature religion and the religion of the existence. Is this clear now? This is related to the secret that he referred to, that God is similar to things, but things are not similar to God. You can't say that the king in his kingdom is like God, but you can say that God in his kingdom is like the king in his kingdom.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Many people thought that Ibn al-Arabi, when he says so, that means he can't focus. No, he's not talking about ignoring the being responsible. We are all responsible as long as we live. So he's not away from Muhammad's religion, because simply this is the final religion, the last religion, the religion that explains the unity, at-Tawheed in everything.
Thank you so much. The second question is, what would you recommend for those who like to start reading the works of Ibn Arabi? How should they approach his works? And I'll say it in Turkish. İkinci soru, İbn Arabi'ye başlayacak arkadaşlarımız için hangi eserleri okumalarını tavsiye ediyorsunuz? Bu konuya nasıl yaklaşsınlar? Thank you.
Actually, many professors and scholars prevent their students from studying Ibn al-Arabi. They fear that they might misunderstand some of the points if they are taken out of the context to be interpreted in a different way. And this is because of misunderstanding. That's why it's about, it's not easy. It's not easy to start reading about openings directly. It's not a good idea unless this person is really ready for these openings. To be ready, this student should get enough sciences of linguistic studies, scientific studies, and even fiqh studies. Of course, there are tasawwuf and Sufi studies they can start with generally, and they can study, I think some searchers talking about the texts of Ibn al-Arabi and about the doctrine of Ibn al-Arabi, but to start directly reading the texts, they should be ready actually. And this is what Ibn al-Arabi himself said. And this is what I wanted to say about the openings of Ibn al-Arabi. Ibn al-Arabi used the word openings because he believes that there should be mujahada, there should be work. It's not about just reading texts like literature or Sufi texts, the familiar ones.
Thank you. Thank you. Going to another question. In Al-Futuhat al-Makkiyah, volume 4, 443.1, it states that God cannot be attained by seeking. The Gnostics seek their own felicity, not God. Could you please explain to us what is meant by this? And I'll say it in Turkish. Hold on just one second. Fütuhat-ı Mekkiye 4. cilt 445.1'de Allah'a arayarak ulaşılmaz. Arifler, yani Gnostik dediğimiz burada, Allah'ı değil kendi saadetlerini ararlar. Bunun ne anlama geldiğini bize açıklar mısınız? Teşekkürler. Please.
الذات الإلهية عند ابن عربي.
The God, the Zat Ilahiyya by Ibn al-Arabi and other scholars, Sufi scholars, we can't reach it. A human being cannot reach it. A human being can know by the tongue of the religions, they can know the names of God, but the real God, human beings cannot reach. But Mecca, it's the Mecca of the heart. It is considered to be the house of Allah. And human beings look for something static in heart. Well, that's why they love Quran, and this is what Ibn al-Arabi considers as Muhammadi heart that everybody should reach. And the Muhammadi heart, it's the perfect mirror where human being can find a God in the perfect image, and this is what Ibn al-Arabi thinks of. So the goal of a pilgrim is to find God in Kaaba, but in the mirror of Muhammad. Otherwise, that means Allah, and nobody can reach that ilahiyah. That means the real Allah.
Thank you. Another question. Ibn Arabi said, God is the essence of every image. Is this connected to his Wahdet al-Vujud concept? And I'll say it in Turkish. İbn Arabi, Allah her şey suretin özüdür demiştir. Bu onun vahdeti vücut kavramıyla bağlantılı mı diye sorduk. Thank you.
إذا كان القصد
If you mean the essence of every image, this is what you call the unity that Ibn al-Arabi talked about? Yes, because Ibn al-Arabi says that there is no God but Allah. This is the Tawheed. And all the prophets repeated the same statement. But with Allah al-Jami' in Islam, the name Allah, they added Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. And so this is to differentiate the essence. Allah is talking about the third one in Islam. This is the third of two in Islam and the third of three people in other religion, of three things in other religion. That's why when we say no God but Allah, this is about unifying Allah in the meaning of at the meaning of Ibn al-Arabi.
All right. Thank you.
So if the image of Allah or the unity of Allah but this is not the meaning of the third of the three. This is the third of two.
Okay. All right. And the other question is, was there any positive response of the traditional exoteric scholars on Ibn Arabi's commentary on spiritual jurisprudence? and let me say it in Turkish. İbn Arabi'nin manevi fıkıh hakkındaki yorumuna geleneksel zahiri alimlerin olumlu bir tepkisi var mıydı? Go ahead, please.
في الحقيقة
بالحقيقة, actually, the spiritual jurisprudence that Ibn al-Arabi talked about in openings and in all religious practices like fasting, pilgrimage, and zakah and other rituals, he talked about this very accurately, and he talked about different doctrines and explains the difference among them. That's why moving from objective thing to spiritual things didn't make many problems among traditional scholars you are talking about here. But most of the cases that were that Ibn al-Arabi was criticized for, it was about philosophical things or things were taken out of context, about how he interpreted pilgrimage and fasting, and even but fasting and zakah didn't make any trouble among scholars.
A similar question, but can you please suggest where to start for someone who wishes to initiate to Ibn Arabi's works in Arabic, though? Let me say it in Turkish. Hold on just one second.
Yeah.
Just one second. İbn Arabi'nin eserlerini olmak isteyenlere nereden başlayacağımızı önerebilir misiniz diye sordular. Please.
هنالك بعض الدراسات.
There are some modern studies. There is a problematic in study. It is a problematic to study Ibn al-Arabi because sometimes some topics are taken and translated, or sometimes they are taken and collected about Ibn al-Arabi. But this is a problem. Why? Because Ibn al-Arabi, because it's difficult to read Ibn al-Arabi because he speaks in circles. Let me give you an example of some of the difficult topics to explain this. For example, when he speaks about the dead person while he was getting washed before getting buried, this is about how they are in between the hand of the washer, like he is between the hands of Allah. Some people might take this positively, but out of time, it became like that Ibn al-Arabi made a mistake here and he is impolite. So the student here, he should pay attention that there is difference in the writing. When he talks about tawakkul, depending on Allah and being satisfied, this is positive. But when some people make a sin, this is impoliteness of human being. Because human beings should attribute every good thing to Allah and every sin to themselves. So when we just take things of Ibn al-Arabi out of context, there would be a problem. That's why some of the books that talked about Ibn al-Arabi in a simple way, I find it difficult to suggest these books. Some books are in French and English. They talked about simplifying Ibn al-Arabi and talking about him, and they introduced the study of Ibn al-Arabi. But I can say that the most important thing is to study tafsir and fiqh, to study Ibn al-Arabi. I can't see a book that I can suggest. Me, myself, I wrote a book about spiritual doctrine and jurisprudence, but I don't think that there is a book that can be read for general studies. And this is the book if you like to have a look at this, but I don't claim that it is an easy book for not specialized people. Openings actually needs that the students should be ready. Ibn al-Arabi said that you should use the terms of establishing and getting people ready. That's why you should study first Sufi books that came before Ibn al-Arabi, like Al-Ghazali. And I believe that this is the best thing that you can do, but every human being, they can see whatever they can do and whatever they can read. I believe research centers like the center that was established now in Karim Waqfi and Ibn Arabi in Oxford, they are institutes that can help because their work is to participate and make the texts of Ibn al-Arabi available to specialized people or those who want to become specialized. So yes, I can say that reading some of these searches and books could be a good introduction to Ibn al-Arabi.
Perfect.
Actually, I was surprised to have this question because reading Ibn al-Arabi for the public, I find it difficult. It's very difficult. Should be either under a scholar or to give someone to the cave and go with Ibn al-Arabi to the cave and read the books.
Thank you. Okay, another question from Amsterdam, actually. I learned that Ibn Arabi has his own fiqh, but I seldom hear about the fiqh Ibn Arabi aside from four Imam mazhab like Maliki, Hanbali, Shafi, and Hanafi. Is my observation correct? And let me say it in Turkish, just one second. İbn Arabi'nin kendi fıkhını olduğunu öğrendim ama dört imam mezhebi Maliki, Hanbeli, Şafii ve Hanefi dışında İbn Arabi fıkhını nadiren duyuyorum. Gözlemim doğru mu diye soruldu. Please.
في الحقيقة مذهب
Actually, Ibn al-Arabi doctrine is similar to Ibn Hazm, and of course he's not part of those who say that Ibn al-Hazm said, but it's somehow similar to Ibn Hazm. Of course, I don't say that it is a doctrine or the fifth doctrine or the madhab, the sixth or the fifth madhab, but I believe that it is a Gnosticism madhab, and he says that Shafi'i said so and so in one point, and he says that Hanafi says this on this case, and he explains why he agrees with Hanafi, for example. But I don't say that it is a madhab, a familiar madhab or a doctrine. I know that someone who was a student, but now he is a professor. He studied Ibn al-Arabi doctrine, Fiqh Ibn al-Arabi in Egypt, and he explained how close the religious doctrine and how similar Ibn al-Arabi doctrine to Ibn Hazm al-Zahiri.
Thank you. I'm going to move to another question. We understand that Gnosis and Ilm al-Ladun are somewhat associated with the name al-Batin. Ibn Arabi says that Jesus is the embodiment of Ism al-Batin. Is there anything you would like to share about that? Let me say it in Turkish. Anlıyoruz ki irfan ve ilmel ledün, yani ledüm ilmi bir şekilde el-batın adıyla ilişkili. İbn Arabi İsa'nın ismini el-batının vücut bulmuş hali olduğunu söyler. Bununla ilgili paylaşmak istediğiniz bir şey var mı? Thank you.
في الحقيقة يعني دراسة
actually to study the Muhammadan fact, it is with the principle of understanding Ibn Arabi doctrine, because all the prophets are faces of the Muhammad fact. So when he talks about Josephi face of Muhammadi fact, they are doors at their times that lead to Muhammad fact. That's why every prophet is a fact that leads to Muhammad, and every wisdom of every prophet, it's part of the wisdom of Muhammad. That's why there is a speciality with the prophet Jesus, because every prophet, I believe, has a speciality in this regard. But Jesus is the spirit, let's say, Ibn al-Arabi met, and it is a principle of a spiritual part that Ibn al-Arabi, the spiritual trip that the person who's looking for the fact goes through. So every prophet is a wisdom of Muhammad, part of the wisdom of Muhammad.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Another question. Is studying philosophy and Quranic logic necessary for understanding the logic of Ibn al-Arabi? Let me say it in Turkish. İbn Arabi'nin felsefesini anlamak için, mantığını anlamak için felsefe ve Kur'an çalışmak gerekli midir? Please.
العلم نور.
Study science is a light, you know, and the more you learn something, this is something good. But no, at all. Ibn al-Arabi differentiates between philosophical sciences and between religious sciences. He believes that philosophy, speech, logic, it's important to those who need proofs and logistic proofs, mantically proof. And this is how Ibn al-Arabi sees this. His stand from philosophy is not negative, but he believes that there is a phase which is above the philosophy and above the intellect, above the brain. And meeting Ibn Rushd, Ibn al-Arabi meeting Ibn Rushd, explaining this case, it's about intellect and philosophy dealing with facts to a certain extent. After that, the brain, it can't deal with this anymore. And Ibn al-Arabi says that there is ghaib, something that we can't know, we can't understand, that we understand only by the religion. While philosophy says, no, the brain can understand everything. But Ibn Rushd understands this completely. Ibn Rushd, when he met Ibn al-Arabi, he asked him, what's the difference? Did you find, have you found any difference in openings? Difference between openings and the philosophical studies? And Ibn al-Arabi said yes and no. And he said between yes and no, many heads might be cut. And people wondered from this question. Actually, the answer is that Ibn al-Arabi wanted to say, yes, there is similarity or agreement to a certain extent, but there are sciences that mind can't reach, or theoretical mind cannot reach without surrenderance, you know, because this is the openingness and the shuhud sciences. That's why when he says that some heads might be cut or separated from the bodies and the spirits might just fly, he wanted to say that the knowers might see how the spirit can go back to the body and how the head can get back to the body in the life. And this is what knowing gives you, and this is the brain or the intellect can't give you. Ibn Rushd understood this. His face went white, and Ibn al-Arabi knew that Ibn Rushd understood him. That's why even Ibn Rushd didn't witness that or didn't see that, but he understood it. And this is the difference between irfan and between philosophy and relating them together. Ibn al-Arabi says that 2 or 3 people might be specialized in philosophy, but and they can even talk about this necessity, but not everybody should study philosophy to know irfan. Al-irfan, knowing, needs studying Quran, language, and more than this.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, next question. What is the approach of Ibn
ما هو
Arabi
هي مقاربة ابن العربي
to the Kaaba?
بالنسبة للكعبة؟
How does he describe the Kaaba?
كيف يصف الكعبة؟ كيف وصف الكعبة؟ كيف وصف الكعبة؟
In Turkey. İbn Arabi'nin Kabe'ye yaklaşımı nasıldır? Kendisi Kabe'yi nasıl tarif ediyor? Thank you.
تحدث كثيرا
Ibn al-Arabi talked a lot about Kaaba, and from the description of Al-Kaaba, he talked about a beautiful Kaaba, about the virgin Kaaba, and he talked about many things related to Kaaba. Pardon. So he describes Kaaba as a woman, beautiful woman who met in a dark night, and she was angry with him, and he started to talk. And he started to talk and to say poetry to please her till she became happy. So he talked about Kaaba as the top crown of Quran, and it is the center of God preservation, and it is the Bayinat al-Huda.
Thank you. That's beautiful too. Okay, well, next question. It's more like a comment. The ways to God are as many as the breadths. Yes, perhaps the way is to be discovered by each aspirant, and God knows best, says. Let me say it in translated to Turkish. Allah'a giden yollar nefesler kadardır, değil mi? Belki de her yol o aday tarafından keşfedilmeli. Tabii ki Allah en iyisini bilir.
يعتبر
Ibn al-Arabi considers everything in the world as praising God, and I couldn't get the question clearly, I think, but I believe that it's talking about praising God and about the role of praising God. It is a worship of God. It's a way to worship God in the world. No creation but praises God.
Right.
Stones, trees, plants, everything.
Right. Okay. In all Futuhat al-Makkiyah, Ibn Arabi mentioned that he does not deny what the classical philosophers said, even though it becomes difficult sometimes to understand them. Is this a proof that Ibn Arabi studied the thoughts of classical philosophers such as Plato, Socrates, or Pythagoras? Let me say it in Turkish. Just one second. İbn Arabi Fütuhat-ı Mekke'de klasik filozofların söylediklerini bazen anlamakta güçlük çekse de inkar etmiyor. Bu acaba İbn Arabi'nin Platon, Sokrat ve Pisagor gibi klasik filozofların düşüncelerini incelediğinin bir kanıtı mı? Yes, please.
من الواضح أن ابن عربي
It's clear that Ibn al-Arabi was educated at his time. He knew everything, every available science at his time, and what was considered as a principle of education. So he was an educated person at his time, but there is no assurance or or any proof that he studied philosophy in details. He knows about philosophy like anyone else about what's the speech and the speakers, but there is no fact to prove that he is specialized or he gave philosophy an importance. I can't say. He himself, he said that you can find philosophy in my books because al-irfan as a nature, it's a collective science. That's why you can find fiqh, poetry, literature, huruf science, because all sciences are there because the science I'm talking about is a collective science. But I can't say that Ibn al-Arabi is a philosopher. No, he's not. And I've heard some people in some universities and departments saying that if we wanted to consider Ibn al-Arabi as a philosopher, we would have said that he's practicing bad philosophy. So he's not a philosopher. Al-Irfan, that's right. There is, and it is a problematic issue that fiqh people don't want irfan in their colleges, you know, in Sharia and religious colleges, and philosophers don't want irfan in their colleges. So let's say that al-irfan, it is between the two. It has its own entity and it has its own curriculum. It has its own scientific principles and facts, and this is whatever said. That's why studying Ibn al-Arabi school is something important.
Very well. All right. Next question. If I'm reading it correctly, I read in the Futuhat that Ibn Arabi mentioned slight different boundaries about hijab, something more loose. Am I right? Let me translate this to Turkish. Okay. Soru şöyle. Eğer doğru okuyorsam Fütuhat'ta İbn Arabi tesettür konusunda biraz farklı sınırlardan bahsettiğini anladım. Biraz daha gevşek olmalı. Haklı mıyım? Please.
لا لم أفهم ماذا
I couldn't understand what he means by hijab. Does he mean the openingness, the opening? Yes, Ibn al-Arabi has openings and kushuf, and he talked about this role as his servant of the sciences of openings and irfan. But concerning hijab itself, nobody can claim it.
One second. Okay, so next question. Are there any documented associations with the Melamitia path? If so, please elaborate. Let me say it in Turkish.
الملامية
Melamiye, evet. I'm sorry for there's a little problem with my, just say it in Turkish. Arkadaşlar, Melamiye konusuyla bir alakası var mı kendisinin diye soruldu. Şimdi ona cevap verilecek. Please.
Ibn al-Arabi gave the principle of futua a big importance. Actually, I worked on this and my dissertation was about Malamitiya in Ibn al-Arabi, and al-Malamitiya hum the highest level of futua. Actually, they look like the nice, like generous people, like scientists that, and powerful people. These are three things that we can have in Futua: science, generosity, and power. But the Al-Malawatiya, it is the hidden part of Futua that they got Irfan and they got the highest level of science and knowledge, and they are not seen, they are hidden. we don't know about their degrees. There is a good relation between Malamatiya and Harfan people, because this path is the path of openings, and you know the path of openings is related to Mujahada and Futuwa, and about achieving the best manners.
Thank you.
يقال ملامية ولا
They say Malamiya or Malamatiya, and they say Malamatiya. It's the weak name, you know, but it is the common name is Malamiya. That means they don't fear any blame on their path.
Another question: what do you think a reader will ultimately achieve after understanding Ibn Arabi? Will it make an atheist or skeptic a believer, or will it satisfy a logical mind to reach God in a well-proven way? And let me say it in Turkish. Second. Bir okuyucunun İbn Arabi'yi anladıktan sonra nihayetinde ne elde edeceğini düşünüyorsunuz? Mesela bir ateisti veya skeptiği mümin yapacak mı, yoksa mantıklı bir zihni Allah'a kanıtlamış bir şekilde ulaşmayı mı sağlayacak? Please.
في الحقيقة
Actually, the behavior who wants to read Ibn al-Arabi, it is not about for merely reading it as a practice, intellectual and theoretical practice. There should be Ibn al-Arabi always calling for that people could be seen in themselves theoretically and practically. So when he talks about sciences, and the science for Ibn al-Arabi is the most important thing. So the name of Alim and Alim comes first after the common name Al-Jami', Allah. He always speaks about science. He's differentiating between Al-Alim and what is achieved by this science. So if you study Ibn al-Arabi and you feel that you can't achieve this science, you can't get it from the science you acquire from Ibn al-Arabi, you are not a scientist, you are not knowledgeable in this science. That means you are just carrying this knowledge and you transferring to others. But Ibn Arabi says the people who practice what they learn, otherwise they would be only transferers. So after 1 year or even 10 years, when you read Ibn Arabi and take it as theoretical practice, I don't think that you would make good use. But if you take it as behavior, as something that you take for practice, I believe this is the needed thing. Openings, it's about openings, the sciences, and this helps people from moving from to yaqeen science and to shuhud science. So they would move from traditional belief to real belief.
I think we're getting close to finish. Let me see if there are a couple more questions. There's one. There's like another comment. There are many ways to God. He says, take 1 step towards me, and I'll take 10 towards you. The aspirant's first step is on a way to him. The path will appear for each aspirant. And the Turkish. Second. Allah'a giden pek çok yol vardır. Bana bir adım at, ben sana 10 adım atayım diyor. Adayın ilk adımı ona giden yoldadır. Her aday için yol görünecektir diye bir comment. Please.
كما ذكرت
As I mentioned, the path for Ibn al-Arabi, it is the openings path. So you want to learn and acquire these sciences. Those who want to follow the path of the right, they either go that way, according to the traditions, or by just practicing religions and rituals as known by everybody. Otherwise, you go to the path of irfan, of knowledge. That means you ask for more, ask for proof, for evidence, to more science and more knowledge. That's why, as you said, Ibn al-Arabi says that openings is two openings, and one there should be two lights. One light is from the within and inner self of the person, but of course the victory comes from God. So you would achieve success from Allah, but you started from your own self. So, and Ibn Arabi says that you work, but God grants you success, and of course God grants you the results of your path.
And I guess one last question. Just 1 second, let me read that really quick. Can you give more information regarding Khidr in Ibn Arabi thought? Can we say Khidr is a real person or an abstract being part of the collective conscience that can be seen by the Gnostic? And the Turkish, just 1 second. Let me just say it in Turkish as well. İbn Arabi düşüncesinde Hızır hakkında daha fazla bilgi verir misiniz? Hızır'a gerçek bir insan mı, yoksa ariflerin görebildiği kolektif vicdanın bir soyut bir parçası mıyız diyebiliriz? Please.
نعم الحديث
Yes, talking about Khidr is a very long speech concerning what we know about him in cultures and civilizations. According to Ibn al-Arabi, it is one creature of God. Some people think that he is a creature of someone else. Talking about him, we can just talk about him with Prophet Moses and his kid. So the prophet goes to meet Al-Khidr through the spiritual kid. So talking about Al-Khidr concerning to Ibn al-Arabi is very long speech. It's about the talks, about prophecy, about wilaya, and about talking about what was added to cultures.
Right. Perfect. This was great, Laila. I think we're getting to the end now. Really appreciate for your. This is beautiful. This was beautiful. It was a great lecture. We appreciate. Well, I appreciate for all the work that the interpreters did. I think we did something great today because 3 different languages. Thank you so very much, everybody. And I hope to see you guys next week, same time, and have a great night.
شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you everybody.